added for chapters 1 and 4.
Listening?
Ooh, listening, that's a good one.
Note-taking skills?
Parts of a speech.
What are they?
Okay, introduction, body,
Conclusion.
conclusion.
Rehearsing.
Can't spell conclusion today. All right, let's take a look at a couple of these. Obviously, you learned about public speaking, and what is a public speech?
In front of people.
How many people?
A lot.
Any numbers?
A lot. Okay, does it say in the book?
Probably.
It
No.
might be in some of the later chapters having to do with small group communication, but a small group is from 3 to 12 people roughly, and any less than that is considered a dyad, which is 2 people. So a dyad and small group communication, it's a little more casual. Although you want to sound like you're having a conversation with public speaking, it's not as casual. You have to do some of these things like rehearse, and prepare, where did we say, speech organization, prepare. Some of those things you have to think about that you wouldn't necessarily have to think about in a small group or a one-on-one conversation.
So for a debate, is that considered a speech or a one-on-one? Because you're arguing with the other person in the debate, but you're still doing it in kind of speech form.
It's actually, it's considered public communication, it's not considered dyad, especially if you're doing it in front of a group, just like we would for, say, presidential debates or other politicians. So it's considered public communication, but it is communication between 2 people. So we will talk about that when we talk about group communication, but I would fit the debate into more of a panel type discussion. Because, you know, usually somebody asks a question, then both parties are allowed to answer it. So it's not even a formal debate anymore, it's more of the panel discussion. Although they can agree and disagree with each other, they don't get to directly address each other. Usually they're addressing the audience, right? Yeah. So it's more of the, along the panel discussion. So we'll talk about that when we get to the later chapters that talk about group speeches, but briefly that's what the answer is. Okay, so public speaking, what do you have to do to be ethical? Be what? Humane, good. How would you be inhumane as a speaker?
Presentation on like killing cats and then like rip the cat's head off. That would be inhumane, I guess.
You're right, that would be inhumane. What else? David, you?
Not considering other people's ethics and morals, or not implementing any morals at all, so that way we don't respect other people.
Yeah, not implementing any morals at all, sure. I actually had a student who brought a sheep heart to class to dissect so he could show us the different parts of the sheep heart. It was a little sketchy on the ethics side because he didn't ask us, first of all, if he could bring that. And second of all, if you think about it, it kind of stinks.
They do.
You know, it could be a bit odorific to other people. So not necessarily maybe inhumane in the extreme sense that we think of inhumane, but it was a bit challenging. I think he could have gotten his message across just as easily without bringing the heart in and dissecting it. He might have been able to just use pictures.
People probably remembered it better though.
Yeah, you're right. I probably wouldn't still remember that speech if he hadn't brought in the heart. But not sure it was as effective as he wanted it to be because not exactly
were,
sure
like,
what the speech was about. I just know that's what he did, but I can't tell you what the point of his speech was. And what were you saying?
People were probably so grossed out that they weren't really thinking about what he was saying. They just like yuck, it's gross.
Right.
What, have you never seen a heart before?
Some people haven't. This was in Aurora, Colorado, so right on the edge of Denver.
No.
So a lot of those people probably had not seen some of the animal parts that we've seen here.
That's where that shooter, the theater shooting happened?
Yep,
Yep.
was in Aurora. Yes. And Columbine is in Littleton, which is on the other side of Denver. I did have a student who gave a speech on nudists and naturists. And he brought in posters of people with no clothes.
Oh my gosh, that's so awkward.
And again, without asking me or the audience members if we were okay with that, that's what he did. What do you think?
So what was his point with that?
Well, I used to assign a cultural diversity speech that was just about cultures, and you just had to speak about it. Now our cultural speech has a demonstration piece, which is partly based on the fact that people talked about inappropriate things. But
Now they just have to demonstrate inappropriate things.
people don't usually demonstrate inappropriate things. Usually, I have found the demonstration to focus quite a bit on food or activities that people do. I've seen karate, hip hop dancing, lots of, somebody said mixed martial arts in here. But that's not anyone who's here today. Okay, so those are options, things that you've learned from a culture other than your own, and you're demonstrating that for us. So I've seen more appropriate speeches that are a little bit more ethical when I've assigned the demonstration piece. Now you're all thinking about what you're going to do for that speech.
Yeah.
I honestly have no
Is that the next speech? What's the next speech?
The next speech is why I'm actually talking a bit about this today, because the next speech is called an I believe or a personal attitude speech. And so we dabbled now in the informative speech by talking about ourselves, which was purely informational. Now we're going to dabble a little bit in the persuasive speech.
Because we've waited like a week or so for Martin Luther King being passed, so.
Yes.
Might as well get into that part.
Well, Martin Luther King believed in having a dream for all people to be treated equally in this country, right?
Okay.
So you have to convince us of what you believe. What's your personal attitude about something? Is it ethical to be ethnocentric? No. What is ethnocentric?
The belief that
Big word.
you're better than, your beliefs and your values are better than everybody else's?
Yep. The fact that you believe that your culture, your beliefs, your values are better than everyone else's. My dad and I were just having this discussion on the way over here. My dad was talking about the Native Americans in Arizona because he's down there right now. Obviously, we have a few in South Dakota, right? Okay,
Couple.
just a couple.
I'm dating a native.
Are you? Awesome. My dad's point was that they have given us so many things. They've contributed so much to the American culture and the American way of life. And it was the people of European descent that tried to destroy that in the first place. We were the ones that came into America and tried to be ethnocentric and take away the amazing contributions that the Native Americans were already making, and they were already doing some great and amazing things before we tried to take over, right? Did I personally try to take over? No. Do I love the shirt with the 3 Native American chiefs, 3 or 4 Native American tribal chiefs on it that says fighting terrorism since 1492? Yeah, I think that's great. I love that shirt, and I think it's absolutely the truth. But we could be ethnocentric about that, right? Because my dad is not Native. He is of European descent. German and Swiss to be in particular. I am combined with my mom, so that makes me German, Irish, and Swiss. Could I say that there are no contributions that natives have made to this country? Is it going to be good as a speaker for me to probably say that?
Depends if you're trying to get people like you or not.
Yeah, and in South Dakota, I think I would piss off a lot of people if I said that, right?
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't believe that, so I wouldn't say that. But, ethical or not ethical? Not ethical. For me to not think about my audience would be not ethical. Just like we don't know who you've dated in the past, right? So is it ethical or unethical to slander someone from South Africa? Probably not a good idea. So we have to kind of figure out who's in our audience. And we'll talk about that in some of the coming chapters. We'll talk about an indirect and direct audience analysis. So we kind of have an idea of the groups we are going to be speaking to. When you are preparing for a speech, obviously you want to think positively. You don't want your speech to be terrible, right? You want to communicate something to the audience that they will learn something from. I have had somebody demonstrate how to make crepes. I have had someone demonstrate how to make a dream catcher. I have had a demonstration speech on more than I can count on origami, and I am still origamically challenged, just in case you were wondering if you're going to teach that. Henna tattooing is fun. In fact, I just saw someone who had a henna tattoo and they were talking about wanting to be able to do it themselves, and I said, oh yeah, it's easy, go look it up online. I said, and you know how you get to draw nice patterns if you're not really good like me? And they're like, how? And I was like, well, you print it out on the printer, then you put the paper on your hand, and you run over it with lemon juice, and then you have something you can trace. And how do I know that? I learned it from my students.
So wait, let me get this straight.
Yes,
Lemon juice, how does that do anything?
it transfers the ink onto your skin so that you can
So
trace the
printer
outline.
ink?
Yeah.
Hmm.
You guys can check it out if somebody wants to do a speech on henna tattooing. Henna tattoos last
Couple of weeks.
a few weeks, yeah. They can last up to 8 if they're taken care of properly. Focus on the topic, not on what you're saying. Did I say that right? No, not on what you look like. How's that? So we talked about that already, right? No practicing in front of a mirror. Anybody ever heard about imagining people in their underwear?
We had this discussion.
Did we?
Yeah,
Don't want to see people in their underwear, so don't imagine them in their underwear.
yeah, that'd be kinda awkward. I'm here for my speech.
And I
What are
can
you wearing?
guarantee you, there are people in this room and in other places where you're giving speeches that you do not want to see in their underwear. You do not want to see them naked. So picturing them naked or in their underwear is probably not a good idea. And there's probably going to be that one person that you're going to laugh hysterically if you're trying to picture them in their underwear or naked. So I do not recommend that, although I've heard the same adage many, many times. Practice in front of a mirror is not a good idea. Talk to the walls like the speech teams do. It's much better because you can focus on your topic then. You're not focused necessarily on what you look like. Should you prepare? You dressed up, right? Yeah. Made you feel better? Made you look better? It was good. You were prepared. But when you're practicing your speech, we want to be focused on the topic itself first and be comfortable with that before we try and put the whole picture together.